Hello, my tribe of frenzies. Welcome back to another thrilling story where twists, suspense, and excitement await. Let's dive in. When my father passed away, I lost more than just a parent. I lost my home. My world, once filled with his warmth and wisdom, crumbled in an instant. But what my sister didn't know was that Dad had anticipated everything, and he had the perfect plan. You see, growing up, my father always had a way of seeing things before they happened. He could read people. He knew their hearts, their intentions. And when it came to my sister, he saw through her long before she ever made her move. At first, I didn't question anything. The will, the house, the way she took control. It all felt final, like an unchangeable fate. I thought I had lost it all. But what if I told you? My father had left behind something far greater than an inheritance. A hidden truth, a twist that would change everything. She thought she had won. She thought she had taken everything from me. But she never saw what was coming next. Because my father had one final lesson to teach. And now, it was time for his plan to unfold. My sister and I lived in our father's house, or at least I did. To her, it was just a place to rest, a pit stop between her social life and wherever else she preferred to be. She was like a passing shadow, coming and going without a trace, barely acknowledging the man who raised us. But me? I stayed, I listened. I learned. Dad and I had a bond that words couldn't capture. We spent evenings talking about life, about choices, about the things that truly mattered. While she distanced herself, I grew closer to him, holding on to every piece of wisdom he shared. We laughed together, worked on projects, shared meals, simple moments that made that house feel like a home. And yet, in my sister's eyes, I was just the one who stayed behind, the one who didn't chase after something bigger. Maybe she thought I was weak, that I needed Dad too much. But the truth is, she was the one who couldn't face what home really meant. I never imagined that one day, our father's passing would divide us even further. That when the time came to hold on to the family we had left, she'd be the first to let go. What she didn't know was that Dad had already seen this coming, and soon she'd learn that walking away from family came with a price. Then came the will, the moment that would decide everything. My sister sat there, calm, collected, as if she already knew what was coming, and maybe she did, because when the lawyer read the words aloud, it felt like a punch to the gut. She was given everything, the entire house, the place where I had lived, where Dad and I had shared memories, where I had taken care of him in his final days. It was all hers now. And me, I got his watch, just his old worn-out wristwatch. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It didn't make sense. How could this be all he left me? How could he give away the home we built together? Leave me with something so small? I turned it over in my hands, feeling its weight, running my fingers over the scratches on the band, the tiny imperfections that told a lifetime of stories. It was the watch he wore every day, the one he checked while waiting for me to get home, the one he used to time his morning coffee, the one he glanced at during our long conversations, never rushing, always present. As I stared at it, something strange happened. The anger, the confusion, it all faded. Because suddenly, it wasn't just a watch, it was him. A piece of him, still here, still with me. And though I didn't understand it yet, I could feel it. He had left me something far greater than I could see in that moment. And soon, I would learn just how much this watch was really worth. Days later, I came home from work, exhausted, expecting nothing more than a quiet evening. But as soon as I stepped inside, something felt off. The air was colder, the house quieter than usual. And then I saw it. My bags, neatly packed, sitting by the door like I was a guest overstaying my welcome. For a moment, my mind refused to accept what I was seeing. My clothes, my belongings, the pieces of my life, dumped at the entrance as if they no longer belonged here. As if I no longer belonged here. Then I heard her voice, sharp, emotionless. "This is it," she said, arms crossed, her face unreadable. "You need to leave." I searched her expression for some kind of hesitation, some flicker of regret, but there was nothing. No warmth, no second thoughts, just cold finality. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged, already turning away. "That's not my problem." And just like that, I was homeless. No goodbye, no second chances. Just a door closing behind me, the sound echoing through the house that was no longer mine. As I stood outside, gripping the handle of my suitcase, reality sank in. I had nowhere to go. But what my sister didn't know was that she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. My hands were shaking as I fumbled for my phone. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat heavier than the last. I had nowhere to go, no backup plan, nothing. My sister had made sure of that. And now, standing outside the house I once called home, I did the only thing I could think of. I called the lawyer. With every ring, my desperation grew. What if he couldn't help? What if this was really it? My mind raced through every worst-case scenario, every dead end I was about to face. Finally, the line clicked. "Hello." I didn't waste a second. "It's me," I blurted out. "She kicked me out. I don't know what to do. I need advice. But before I could finish, I heard something strange on the other end of the line. A chuckle, then a full, hearty laugh. I froze. My grip on the phone tightened. I must have misheard him. There was no way he was laughing right now. But no, it was clear as day. The lawyer was actually laughing. "I can't believe this," he finally said, still amused. "Everything is happening exactly as your father predicted." I blinked. "Wait, what? What do you mean?" A pause. Then, in a tone filled with knowing anticipation, he said, "Come to my office tomorrow. I have something for you." The call ended, but his words echoed in my mind. My father predicted this? How? Why? And more importantly, what did he leave behind? I didn't have answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This was far from over. The next day, I barely slept. My mind replayed the lawyer's words over and over. "Everything is happening exactly as your father predicted." What did he mean? What had Dad seen coming? And more importantly, what had he planned? I arrived at the lawyer's office early, my pulse racing as I stepped inside. He was already waiting, a knowing smile on his face as he slid a sealed envelope across the desk. "This," he said, "is what your father wanted you to know." I hesitated for a moment before picking it up. My fingers trembled as I tore it open, unfolding the paper inside. And as I read the words, my breath caught in my throat. Dad had left behind a secret condition, one that would change everything. If my sister and I could live together peacefully, if we could put aside our differences and prove we could share the home without conflict, we would each receive $1 million. I blinked. $1 million. reeled, but as I read further, my stomach twisted into a knot. Because there was one more condition. If my sister forced me out, if she chose greed over family, power over peace, then she would get nothing, and the entire $2 million would be mine. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. My father had seen this coming. He had known exactly what she would do. And now, because of her own actions, she had unknowingly thrown away everything. I exhaled slowly, a small smirk forming at the corners of my lips. She had played her game, and now she was about to learn the cost of her choices. I didn't waste any time. The moment I left the lawyer's office, I headed straight to my sister's house. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from anticipation. She had no idea what was coming. I knocked on the door, and when she opened it, her expression twisted into something between irritation and disbelief. "What do you want?" she scoffed, arms crossed. I held up the letter, my grip firm. "We need to talk." She rolled her eyes, but she let me in. The place was spotless, pristine even, as if she had already erased any trace that I had ever lived there. I sat down, unfolding the paper, and took a slow breath. "Dad left a condition in his will," I said, watching her closely. "One you didn't know about." She barely looked up from her phone. "Oh? What condition?" she muttered, uninterested. I slid the letter toward her. If we had managed to live together peacefully, we both would have walked away with $1 million each. Her head snapped up. I saw it, the flicker of panic. "What?" she whispered, grabbing the paper and scanning it, her fingers trembling slightly. I leaned back. "But if you kicked me out?" I paused, savoring the moment. "Then the full $2 million goes to me." Her breath hitched. Her eyes darted back and forth over the words, like she could somehow will them to change. But she couldn't. Dad's words were final. Silence stretched between us, and then I saw something I never expected. For the first time, she looked afraid. She let out a nervous laugh, shaking her head. No, this can't be right. That lawyer must have made a mistake." She looked at me, her confidence cracking. You're lying. You're making this up." I slid my phone onto the table, the lawyer's voice still fresh in my recent calls. "Feel free to check for yourself." Her face turned pale. I could practically see the calculations running through her mind, the reality setting in. This wasn't a trick. This wasn't a game. She had just lost everything. Maybe we can fix this," she stammered. "You can move back in. We can pretend none of this happened." I shook my head, letting out a quiet chuckle. "It doesn't work like that." Her eyes narrowed, shifting from panic to anger. "You knew, didn't you?" she snapped. "You let me do this. You wanted me to fail." I raised an eyebrow. "No, you did that all on your own." Her breathing was uneven now. She was realizing what this meant. Not just the money, but the fact that she had been outplayed. That Dad had seen right through her before he was even gone. "This isn't fair," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. He was supposed to leave it to me." I stood up, pocketing the letter. "And he did. Until you showed him exactly why you didn't deserve it." She clenched her fists, staring at the floor, refusing to meet my gaze. The weight of her own choices finally settling in. I walked toward the door. Before I left, I paused, glancing back one last time. She sat there, gripping the letter like it was a lifeline. Her shoulders slumped. The same sister who had kicked me out with no hesitation now looked hollow, empty. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Goodbye, sis," I said, my voice calm, resolute. "Enjoy the house." And with that, I stepped outside, inhaling the cool evening air. I reached into my pocket, pulling out Dad's watch, turning it over in my palm. It shimmered under the streetlights, a reminder that he had always known exactly what he was doing. I walked away without looking back, the weight of the past finally lifting from my shoulders. I had lost my home, but I had gained something much greater. Justice. My sister had everything: the house, the power, the control. And yet, in the end, she had nothing. She chose greed. She chose selfishness. And in doing so, she lost the one thing that could have truly made her rich: family. My father always said, "People reveal who they are when they think no one is watching." And he was right. She thought she had beaten me, but she never saw the game she was playing. And in the end, she lost to someone who never even had to make a move, because Dad had already played for me. Moral of the story: greed blinds, but wisdom sees beyond. True wealth isn't measured in money. It's found in integrity, family, and the choices we make when no one is watching. If you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven her? Or was justice truly served? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and join the tribe of frenzies for more mind-blowing stories that will leave you speechless. Thank you for watching. Until next time, frenzies, spread love, spread peace, spread joy.